Great.
Hi, my name is Roxanne Dyer,
My name is Sharon Lopez.
and here we have our final project. We're forecasting the market shares for EVs for 2050.
We'll be starting off with our basic model, and on the left, we have our market diffusion model assumptions, which we have links to. One of the very important parts of these assumptions are the P and Q values. P values being capturing how innovative the project is, and the Q value is capturing kind of the word of mouth or how fast pacing it is to the market. So here we are assuming that the p-value is going to be a very, very low number. This is based on a study by UC Davis that has been using different coefficients for each kind of world, like different parts of the world, and using like a multi-model to show innovation of EVs. So I guess one of the important factors also to show part of the base diffusion model is that we're assuming that we're ready at 2023, we're at 6% of the market share, or in other words, EVs are capturing 6% of the entire market, and we'll do so and we'll keep increasing with our P and Q values until it hits 100%. In our model, we also, based on the projection, it is kind of going to go over 100% by 2050. I also highlighted main key years. So by 2030, that's when the US said that the EVs were going to account for 50% of all shares in the market, where clearly it's not near based on our model. But here in one of our assumptions, we included the actual year that the EVs will be 50% of all sales, which is at 2043. Other key aspects, we calculated total vehicles on the road and divided them into EVs and ICE, which will be used later to show emissions, total emissions. And we also found the number for total vehicles sold, broke them off to EVs and ICE sold. We went into cars that die every year, and we're assuming that a car's lifespan is about 20 years. So it's a little bit higher than the original assumption that we did in class. And finally, we have the oil saved number that we will show in our next graphs.
So here we have the BAS model, and we could see that the choke year begins around like 2035, 2036. This is where it really begins to take off for EVs. Right here, the second chart shows the emissions breakdown and how emissions is being broken down over the years. It begins with it's starting it's starting high and it gradually decreases while EVs gradually increases. Another visual or another way to visualize this is by the type of cars on the road, and this is just another way to visualize like EVs how the sorry this is another way to visualize how ICE cars are decreasing and EVs are increasing. And finally, we have the oil model. This depicts how much oil will be saved over time due to the switching to EV model opposed to ICE model. And we see that as the years goes on, more and more oil will be saved
At a slow rate.
Yeah. So here's our first scenario. And within this model, we see that this is our original P's and Q's, and these are our new P's and Q's.
So for like this scenario, we are just changing the P and Q values.
Yeah.
Just the P and Q values.
Yeah. And we see that we reach 50% by 2043, and we reach 100% by 2050. In the newer scenario, we reach these at an accelerated rate, much faster at 2031 and at 2035, 100%. And just by changing the numbers, we see that like we will get to 100% conversion to EVs faster over time.
Yeah, this is probably just due to the higher Q value. So meaning that early adopters are adopting earlier, or it's just really taken off early, just not really based on the innovation itself, but mainly because of how popular it's getting. So these numbers were also based on a more recent model than the other model, the original model. So for the second scenario, we are not changing the P and Q values, but we are changing kind of like your personalized standard deviation and mean of ice efficiency. So before, for the original model, we had originally used -10% for the mean and 4% for the standard deviation. These numbers are based off your original homework that we did previously. So now we're just trying to see how it changes. So basically, this is kind of just taking into consideration that changes in efficiency is going to occur every single year, but the percentage of how it's distributed and how it's changing, it's based on the numbers we're changing ourselves based on these two cells. So as you can see here, just kind of broke down how many emissions of total emissions are going to be EVs and the rest are going to be ICE vehicles. So this is our original model. So there really isn't much of a difference unless you like start playing around with it. But the more you do it, either one, usually the newer model is going to be slightly bigger. Just wanted to see how this by changing the standard deviation and the mean would look like. As for a third scenario, we are making a very dramatic assumption or kind of forecasting that there will be a recession, and with a recession, less people buy cars. So we use this assumption to change how many cars there are for 1,000 people. So originally, we can see here that we had 866, but we divided it in half into 433 to see how emissions will also look like and how it's distributed among EVs and ICE. So here we can see that obviously there are a lot less emissions in total for our new model, but it seems also that the percentage of like the distribution between EVs and ICE vehicles seems to be the same as the original model. So it's very interesting to see if we're in a recession, there are less emissions. So that's our model is predicting.
So according to the goals, we see that according to the model in 2035, the market share for EVs is 8%, and in 2050 it becomes 101%. Drastic. And for our goal 2, we see that once the adoption to electric vehicles, it reduces the US oil demand by this much. That's a huge number, by 2030, and by this much by 2050. So for the Biden plan to reduce greenhouse gases by 50% by 2030, this isn't really achievable based on our model. In order that will become achievable if it was 2049 at that rate. But in reality, like this is like a good step in the right direction. 15 years to cut emissions, 15 more years to cut emissions by half. Like that's overall is a good like plan. So that's a part of our analysis.
Finally, citations. So there you have it, our model, our final project that projects the amount of EV shares for until 2050.
Thank you.
Wait. 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 Oh.